Hi, my name is Steve Wiideman, and welcome to another episode of our Unbottleneck podcast. Today, we have a very special treat. We're going to be talking about whether or not your business is giving the right impression. And with us today is Gil Nevo. Is that how I pronounce it? I pronounced it right.
Yeah.
All right. So Bill Nevo is with Superbrand, and it's the heartfelt brand that soars. What a great slogan. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. Bill's company mission is to help customers rise above the noise and create authentic branding that gets them noticed online. Bill's background is in creative TV and advertising for over 15 years, which is amazing. He animated over 100 episodes of the show South Park. Oh my God, I love that show. I don't know if you do, but I absolutely love it. As well as helped brand powerhouses like Coca-Cola, Ben & Jerry's, Wiideman water, and helping them communicate their messages around the world. Gil has worked in many different capacities throughout his career, including as a designer, animator, art director, creative director, and producer. That is a mouthful. He was lucky enough to cut his teeth on some of the strongest, most coherent brands out there before going on to use what he learned and founded in his own business, Nice Studios, a media production company. Gil, welcome to Unbottleneck. And did I miss anything in that intro? Because it sounds like there's some things going on that we haven't heard in that.
It sounds incredible. It sounds like a creative career ADD to me.
It sounds like what's the serial entrepreneur syndrome, right? Where you're so passionate about what you do that you look back at your background like, wow, I did all those things. Well, they were just stepping stones to get to where you are. And you look at them and you're like, these are pretty big things, but to you, they were just, part of the journey. I think that's pretty incredible. So You're based out in LA?
I am indeed, downtown Los Angeles.
That is actually right around the corner. Why haven't we gotten together? Oh, that's right. There's a pandemic.
Yeah, well, we'll do that soon.
Yeah, we'll make it happen. So it'll be fun. Well, cool. Well, thanks again for being on our show. We did put some questions together for you because we thought what better than to ask somebody who's also here in LA about the things that we do in the agency and the digital world. Let's start with kind of a popular question. What is, in your opinion, a brand ambassador?
Okay. So first of all, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's good to see you again. Good to be on, what is it? What episode number of Unbottleneck?
300. No, I wish. I believe we're on episode 4.
Great. Well, that's an honor. I'm early and hopefully I'll be a repeat guest down the line.
You're a cornerstone. You're part of our foundation. This is great.
Exactly. I feel like a founding father. So no, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. So brand ambassador. Look, there's a lot of definitions for brand ambassador and different people see it as different things. And actually, as I looked at your questions, the follow-up question was, how important is this role becoming? At what point does a founder of a company consider handing off this role? And so I would say that a brand ambassador can be anybody who loves your brand and engages with your brand enough to speak about it and tell other people about it. Now, obviously, there's lots of ways that can be handled. First of all, social media influencer might love the brand enough and just, speak about it to his or her audience. You can also have a paid brand ambassador like Wiideman Water, who I worked for many years, used 50 Cent and all these and Kobe and all these athletes to promote Wiideman Water, and they were brand
ambassadors. Kind of moves into influencer marketing a bit too, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, of course. Look, there's a great article by Kevin Kelly called Your 1000 True Fans. Have you read that article?
No, I haven't. I'll check it out.
So I'm sure a lot of viewers, have read it because it's a pretty popular article. But it talks about a business being able to sustain itself off of 1,000 true fans. And a true fan is somebody who basically loves your brand enough, who will buy anything that you put out in the market and will spread the word about your brand. So a brand ambassador can be anyone from a true fan who just loves you to somebody you pay to promote, your brand. The key is that this is something that you should always be doing, right? You should never hand it off. Everyone on your team should be a brand ambassador. Every one of, your goal as a company is to make every person a brand ambassador. And you do that through engaging them with branding, through creating great customer service, through telling stories, through entertaining. I know that's a question we'll get to as well.
Making it not about yourself, but about the people who support you and who believe in your product, service, and brand. I think that's amazing. You know, and I remember doing a lot of online reputation management back in the day, and one of the areas of focus was to try to connect with our customers in a way that got them to engage with us on social channels. So if some radical person decided to say something negative, instead of you having to figure out how do we get this removed, all of your brand ambassadors and brand loyalists would jump into that discussion and basically bury it, right? Mm-hmm. They would say, you know, you're nuts, and you know, we love the product. Here's a picture of me with it. You're crazy. You're doing it wrong. You know, and so building that kind of brand loyalty and a small army or tribe of brand ambassadors seems like the way to leverage word of mouth and to really focus on letting your customer be your voice instead of spending, you know, millions of ad dollars. A lot of times just a word of mouth campaign. We did that at Disney back in 2006, and I remember asking my boss, I'm like, so exactly what is this affordability campaign? Is there like a discount or something? What are we promoting? Well, no, we're not actually giving any discounts right now. We're calling it an affordability or word of mouth campaign to remind people that it's affordable to go to the parks. I'm like, so it looks like a promotion, but all you're really doing is just saying come to the park, but in a way that makes it seem like there's a savings. Mm-hmm. That's actually kind of genius. And then the word of mouth part of it was what, you know, really took off. Everybody was like, whoa, did you know you could get a, you know, Disney, you know, vacation for like $2,500? You know, we didn't know that, but that wasn't a discount. That was normal pricing. They just never really promoted it. So in doing that, you know, it builds awareness and it focuses on the people who really need that discount, right? Yeah. So to say, or to know that there's a lower cost associated.
Yeah.
So
I'll give you another example. You know, a brand that I'll mention probably a couple of times on this call is Patagonia, because they've built such a strong brand and following. But a few years ago, they had an issue with, a wool sheep farm where they were getting their wool that was found to be doing some unethical stuff. And there was a few articles written. And I remember looking at the comments, and Patagonia did exactly what it should do, as like in line with their ethos, which is right away say, we're investigating this. We obviously don't condone, you know, any mistreatment of animals, and we're looking into this farm to see what's going on. And I saw all these comments going, you know, wanting to tear down Patagonia, like, how hypocritical that you would do this, right? And then all of these fans of Patagonia were just stomping it, because they understood that the company had a stronger ethos. They believed in the company to actually right the wrong. And so they gave him that opportunity. And that scandal didn't touch Patagonia because they already had those values embedded in the brand. And so people understood him.
They had enough brand ambassadors that
exactly
weren't elected or selected. They just became it because they loved and appreciate the brand. And without going off on a political tangent, I think we could say in this election there was a little bit of that too. So
a lot of that, and
we won't talk about that. We'll move on.
You gave me a surprise question, which I am happy to answer. So yeah.
So you do have a huge background in art, design, film, production, and more. By the way, I don't know if we talked about this before our discussion today, but you know, I actually helped a company out in LA called FITM, Fashion Institute of Design, and so we actually helped them and their content writers understand some really in-depth keyword research and how to make their pages appear higher in search results. So we're somewhat connected. My kids are both going to Orange County School of Arts, so OSHA kids. So super common trait we have there. That's pretty cool.
Very cool. Yeah.
So let's talk about animation. So you animated over 100 episodes of South Park. There's an instant brand recognition when we see like Kenny or Chef, and I even got to see sort of the pilot episode, the religion versus Santa Claus thing, right?
Versus,
and hear Cartman's voice, listen to that theme song. And I'll tell you, every time I take protein powder, I turn it on my wife and I'm like, beefcake. Question: should small businesses be working smarter and harder to create messaging that entertains their potential customers and existing clients?
yeah, yes, absolutely. And I think I'll say, look, entertains, and obviously the way you frame the question with South Park, you think that you'd have to be funny, but entertain does not mean that you have to be funny. Entertain means engage, right? Entertain is, I would say that to blow that up is a great brand would both entertain, educate, and merge that with a valuable product.
Right.
And then you've got a great brand. So it doesn't have to be funny, as long as it's engaging, as long as people are either learning something or have a reason to tune in, and that it's sticky, right? It has something about it that makes people want to tune in again and again. So a great company that's done that recently in the last 6 years or so, 7 years, was a company called Headspace. So it's a meditation app. Have you ever used them?
Yeah, I actually have Headspace and Calm.
Okay, so you remember when Headspace came out, they were the first of its kind, and they had these great little animations at the beginning that ran you through the different stages of meditation.
I remember.
So that was, you got it. Yeah. So basically that was a huge, that was an entertaining thing that they did to get people engaged, to make people, it shows their sort of ethos and their vibe, and it creates a brand personality. And it was a really nice way to introduce people to meditation in this kind of simple, cartoony, fun way. So they did a great job of entertaining. Other companies doing that right now, I mean, Goop, which is the Gwyneth Paltrow company that has a TV series on. There's Red Bull, which obviously is huge. They have a Red Bull, entertainment arm, right? Gary Vaynerchuk, if you know who he is, he does a lot of.
Yeah, we spoke together at the RD Summit last year. He had the big stage. Obviously.
Yeah. So entertaining is huge.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Now, do you think relating or having content that your audience can relate to plays a role in that? Because I notice when I follow a lot of, I used to when I had a lot more time, but I used to follow like the oatmeal was one of my favorites, and then the onion. Now, there are two things that I thought were really relatable and entertaining that when I looked at and did a little bit of forensic work to see how many people were sharing and had linked to the content, it just completely blew my mind. One of them was on the oatmeal. There's a comic it's called When Web Design Goes Straight to Hell. And this comic basically goes through this whole storyline of, a business owner who's working with a web designer. Boyd's Toast, I think, was the example. And he says, here's my, audacious 1998 website with stars and scrolling marquees and stuff. And the web designer's like, I got you covered. And he gives him this beautiful design with toast and graphics, just amazing looking thing. And the owner goes, yeah, that's really interesting, but I have some changes I want to make to it. And then by the end, the designer is just like, and we have an abomination, right? Because my mother did a brochure in the 80s and she's really good. And she says we should have kittens on there because people relate to that. And so web designers, since there's so many of them, relate so well to that comic that whenever they're in a circumstance, they refer to it. And referring to it means links, means mentions, helps build the brand, helps drive traffic, and helps move up holistic search engine rankings for that website, because now they have some 20,000 links from one simple piece of content.
Yeah. How do you use that in SEO?
Yeah, so that's relatable to me you mean for like a comic? A comic in our world would probably be more like an infographic or something very descriptive. We're working on one right now with our friend Brian Wallace and Now Sourcing. They're putting this incredible infographic together based on some research that we did. I don't know how entertaining it's going to be, but it's definitely gonna be educational for brands that have 2,000 or 3,000 locations, and like, how am I going to get this page, which is the same across those locations, to show up in search results and be unique? And so we did some research and we got this really neat diagram we're putting together, and we're excited to show that. So it's a point of reference. And if folks reference something online that you created, Google, of course, passes page rank value from that reference in the link. And it, helps move up search rankings.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the keys to entertaining, And if you want to build an entertaining brand, one of the keys to entertaining is showing your vulnerability.
Yeah.
So in a way, that's what entertaining is about. It's about showing, whether that comes off as a funny way, in a funny way, it shows your true personality, and people always see themselves in people who are being vulnerable, and they kind of feel like,
Interesting.
well, I can't do that. And so they express their vulnerability and their sort of authenticity through people entertaining. That's why Gary Vaynerchuk, for example, is so entertaining, because he runs the gamut of his emotions with every little thing that he does, right? He's either angry, or he's talking fast, or he's passionate, or he's vulnerable, right? And that's why people tune in. So if I were to challenge you, if you said, well, we have this infographic that is going to be educational, but maybe it's not quite entertaining, I would challenge you to find where your personality is in it, and where you can find some vulnerability. So maybe there's some self-deprecating humor in it, or maybe there's something that you kind of admit, well, we don't know, but we think, right? So any place where you can be a little bit funny, now that content can become entertaining. If you look at South Park as an example, Trey Parker used everything that he went through in life was in that show. There's all these characters who are these fast.
A lot of us related to it because we're like, oh yeah, so like some of the internet things they did. It was like, wait a minute, that's so funny. That's just like, so what our kids and so forth are going through. Yeah, that's amazing. Yep. So I think relatable might be a cornerstone of creating, content that's memorable for people, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. All right, I got to put the BCGs back on. Have you heard that term before? BCGs? BCGs are birth control glasses, and it's a military thing. And since it's Veterans Day, I figured I would throw one out today. I know we didn't talk much about the whole Veterans Day, but I had to absolutely bring my my blue cord in from infantry, because I thought, I'm sure someone in the building, if there's anyone here today, might be interested in my time in the 90s, serving.
Well, happy Veterans Day to you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so number 3, I hear you telling companies to unlock the power of their brand. What does unlocking the power of your brand actually mean? And how does branding lead to making more money? We talked about this a little bit before the call, so I'm actually really anxious to hear your answer.
Yeah, I think it's so important, and it we touched upon this a little bit. It's that unbottleneck, right? Mm-hmm. It's the idea that there are lots of things about your brand that you may not be aware of that are actually stopping people from contacting you, from engaging with you, and from hiring you, or from going further on let's say a website, right? Or wherever they encounter it, website, social media. Mm-hmm. And you don't even realize you're doing it, because you're just doing what you think you need to be doing in order to connect with people, and you're telling them about what you do and what your service is and what the benefits are. And what you're forgetting and what you're not realizing is that people make emotional decisions. Mm-hmm. And they look at your website, your content, and they make an emotional decision right away, and they don't even know they're doing it, right? And they're doing it because they're trained emotionally to respond to certain things, positively, negatively, etc. And so branding is this kind of unsung hero. When it's done right, it's beautiful. It creates engaging fans. It creates, ambassadors like Patagonia. When it's done poorly, it actually turns people off immediately, and they don't even know why it's turning them off. They get turned off immediately. And this will run into the question of the different, the next question, I believe, is the messaging cues, right? What are the messaging cues that actually, tell people whether to turn on or turn off, or to dig deeper? So branding as a discipline is really about unblocking. Well, I'd say unlock the power of your brand. It's because it's unblocking those areas where people get stuck, and they just, they find you and they leave their site immediately. Leave your site immediately.
I feel like it's a little bit of a pull versus a push. A push is here's all the things I want to get out, but you're not listening to what the world is looking for and what they're asking. And if your content is geared toward solving specific problems and having a voice in very important industry conversations, then you're part of the ecosystem that is open and I think businesses respond to that, and even consumers will respond to that, as opposed to just saying, here's all the stuff we do. You're saying, are you having trouble with this part of your phone? And like a lot of people are like, yeah, I hate that. Here's a quick solution and way to fix that. And you start producing content that's relevant to your industry, but solving a lot of problems. I once asked one of our clients, hey, could you give me a list of all the questions in your CRM that your customer service gets every day? Because we want to use those to use them in Google, questions and answers and search results. We want to use them for frequently asked questions or FAQ page markup. And we want to use them for the voice assistant so that, at some point you can cut down your customer service. Somebody could just say, talk to company name, and we can rattle off all those answers, through the voice assistants.
Yeah.
And it's funny how that culminates into, creating, engaging content that folks are really looking for, as opposed to just saying, here's what I want to share. You're solving real problems that people have already asked you. I think that's interesting.
I mean, look, that's a big part of it, is anticipating the questions and understanding what your customers are looking for and what they're going to experience. And branding is even more than that, right? So the customer experience is one of those things, but also you have the aesthetic, the personality, the ethos, the tone of voice, the visual quality of your brand, right? Like, all those things make a difference, down to the typography. And I'll get into this in a little more detail, but even something like the typography on your website can literally give somebody a cue that you're either outdated, don't know what you're doing, don't care about them, don't care about their visual experience, because humans are visual. So when we see something that is aesthetically pleasing, that pleases us, we have an emotional connection. When somebody welcomes us to their home, to their business, right? And they say, would you like a cup of coffee? That makes a difference. All of these little things. And so branding is about finding each one of those cues and starting to smooth them out and going, how can we make this experience awesome and emotionally gratifying and engaging for our customers?
That's why so many people reference Apple in the digital world, because they've done such a great job of trying to build, really good aesthetics and just a really overall great brand online.
There's so many companies that do this well. There's so many great examples. I think about, I mentioned Patagonia, Warby Parker, Ben & Jerry's, Vitamin Water, Tom's Shoes, Nike, Adidas. Like, these are all brands, right? They have an ethos, they have a visual aesthetic that you come to expect, and they are consistent in their messaging and what they're trying to do. And so, yeah, it's branding. Like, the best companies out there are branded. And if you're a small company and you're not taking advantage of those tools, then you're missing out.
I know as a tech company, we have a lot of introverted folks here at Wiideman, and we're trying to think, how can we convey a message in 2021 that we're a fun, engaging, helpful, interesting brand, when most of us spend our time in code. And so we're going through a very exhaustive exercise right now and trying to find what our brand message is. We're queuing up several different creatives and statements. And then we're going to test some of those, within the social platforms, and see where people respond, see where what kind of engagement we get, and we're going to learn, and from that learning, I think it's going to help us to really develop who we are. And I think you're right. I think it's going to come back to authenticity, being authentic, being transparent, and having fun in a way that is just being who we are. And if that's nerdy and silly, then that's what it is, and people will respond to that who are looking for that kind of content. So I'm excited to see where it goes, but I'm more excited that we got beyond the fear of getting out there and actually doing it. So many brands just won't do that, and I'm like, you haven't updated your website in 6 years, and every time I hear from you, you ask, how come I don't get the traffic I used to get? because brands are improving their presence online, and you haven't done anything to evolve. You've got this font size 6 that people can't read, and on mobile experience, you can't navigate to do anything because it hasn't been designed for mobile correctly. So yeah, I think there's a there's definitely a lot of work, and sometimes it's just chipping away at it. Pick one thing per month, maybe as a small business, and say, this month I'm going to focus on typography. Next month I'm going to focus on aesthetics. Next month I'm going to focus on my color guide and style guide. I think that makes it a little bit more attainable. If you're really small, make it quarterly. This quarter I'm going to do typography, and you'll find in 2, 3, 4 years from now you've worked to really try to build a better, presence online, and hopefully, your brand resonates now with users who visit your website. So I don't know. It's just so talking about those messaging cues. So anyway, on a tangent here. What are some
no, but
signals?
you're right. You just sold my business for me, because that's literally what I tell people all the time. It's like, you don't understand how easy it is to lose somebody. It is so easy with the way that information, information is structured today. It's like somebody goes on your site, if they don't see the headline they want, they're gone, And so people don't quite get.
I can just shove my keyword in my headline.
With that, yeah, exactly, right.
So this actually segues into this question. What are the common signals that companies putting out there giving people the wrong impression of their business?
Well,
so I think the keyword stuffing is a big part of it. That's really 1990s. And I still see a lot of that, particularly in law industry. But
yeah, that's terrible, because you get a bunch of gobbledygook that, may attract algorithms, but doesn't attract people.
Not sustainable. You might get to the top, but you won't stay there. Once the search engines figure out that you're not providing a great experience and users are coming back and choosing a different result over time, they have to infer that this wasn't very helpful, and they're going to move it down or demote it.
Yeah. So from an SEO perspective, that's huge.
So common signals, giving the wrong impression.
All right. So one thing that you mentioned was old website. If you have not updated your website in 3 years, your website looks outdated, period. Trends
this
change.
This is segueing into like a Jeff Foxworthy joke here, I can tell. If you haven't updated your website in 3 years, you might need a redesign.
You absolutely need a redesign. Websites and web design and the internet and the tools, they change yearly. So if you haven't updated your website in 3 years, you look outdated, whether you think you do or not. Hey, we just did that 3 years ago.
And why wouldn't I have my nephew who's in high school, who's done some GoDaddy sites, redesign my website for me?
That goes into the next cue, typography. Because typography is literally one of the most important things that most people don't understand. Developers don't understand it. Even young designers don't understand how important typography is. Typesetting is literally one of the most impactful visual cues that we have. We see great typography and design every day. We look at companies like Apple and Nike and Adidas, and we see that, and they're done impeccably because they spend a lot of money and effort on design. And so we see that as a certain level. And then when you go down to other companies and you don't see that, then you know right away that they're cheap, or that they're using a template that you see everywhere. And so even though nobody recognizes it, they feel it, right? It feels that way. So sometimes you can use that to your advantage. So certain marketers use these kind of, cheap typesetting and fonts as a way to connect with sort of their clientele. But if you're not using it on purpose, it most likely is hurting you, right? So that means things like letter spacing and text, the size of your text and the readability and the font and all that stuff. So those things make a huge impact. Another thing is photography. If you are not investing in your photography and you're using the photos that you shot of your employees on your flip phone, that's not going to work, right? People see that and they go, okay, this person is not treating their company with respect by taking great photos of people. Photography, creating an inconsistent experience. So this is a brand, this is what you were talking about earlier, right? It's creating experience for people where you don't expect what they're going to ask and do, right? If you haven't managed their objections, if you haven't really tried to think out, well, what questions are they going to have for me that I can answer before they ever speak to me, then you are not giving them the information they need and the peace of mind to hire you and work with you.
And they're going to go elsewhere. Yeah, I noticed one thing I know that both Applebee's and IHOP are working on right now is improving their delivery page experience. If you were to do a search for restaurant delivery or breakfast delivery, one of the things that you'll see in the search results is on mobile is a very nicely designed accelerated mobile page meant to load fast and rank well, but it's void of the design of the rest of the website. There's no responsive version of it. So if you happen to look at it on a desktop, even though most people are going to be on mobile, you're going to say, where's the menu? Where's the navigation? Where's all the things I'm used to seeing on the website? And suddenly I've got this huge white margin on both sides of the page. And, it's definitely confusing. Am I on a different website? Am I still on Applebee's or IHOP? So I think you're right. I think having that consistency, and that's what always turns me off about squeeze pages. The moment I'm on a page that I know I'm in some kind of click funnel, and I'm like, yep, I'm not going to get suckered into this. I don't care if it is $5 because I'm done. It'll end up being like $1,100. So forget it. So hopefully users are learning from that click funnel experience and not, falling prey to it.
Yeah. One thing that, look, users have a second sort of sense for, or clients, customers, they have a second sense for this stuff. They've experienced it before. They get on a page, they recognize it right away, and it either excites them because they're the type of customer that's for, or it immediately turns them off. And so you have to make a conscious decision about these things, or you might be missing your audience. One of the things that I do with Superbrand is branding is kind of a little esoteric sometimes, right? It's hard to understand what it is that I'm going to produce for them, because we're talking about messaging and we're talking about these sort of high level ideas. And so what I do is I have a sheet for people that runs them through everything that I'm going to do, everything that I'm going to ask them, the type of things that we're going to talk about, how it works, what are the results. And I put that right in my proposal so that they understand that I have a process, that this isn't just like, oh, Gil's an artist and a creative, and he's just going to make it great. It's like, no,
Gil's just going to make the money come in. We don't have to do anything.
Yeah, exactly. So I make sure that I answer all their questions before, so that they can come in knowing that we have a process in place, that we've done it before, that we've thought about what they're going to ask and what they're going to be worried about.
I'm a little more aggressive. In our proposals, we actually have 4 rows in a table that require that they initial that they understand how much they have to be involved and what's going to be required on their end, so that they don't think that we're just going to suddenly make the phone ring for them. That there's going to be work, and they're going to have to contribute both in helping us create rich media, and approving content and content guidelines. And so, I think it's really important. It helps set expectations, I think, well with them, but also educates them to know that there's a lot more involved in these different disciplines of online marketing, especially in branding and in SEO, that do require a lot of engagement. Oh, one of my favorite questions. I love this too, and I've got some stories myself. What's your take on lifestyle branding? Are you a fan of brands marketing a way of life before their actual products and services? I want to hear your take on this, and I've got some feedback too.
Why don't you give your take? Because you have a take on it. I'd love to hear yours.
Sure. So we actually got to work with California Closets several years ago. And it was interesting because, we came in as our standard. Here's our sort of template roadmap of how we address search. We're going to start with doing a technical audit, and then we're going to get into looking at specific pages and why they're not ranking for keywords. And then we're going to look at where competitors are getting links that we need to get links from, and then let's really fully develop like a full-on taxonomy strategy plan for them. And as we started to get into it, they kept pausing to interject, say, wait a minute, that doesn't necessarily convey the message that we want to have to our audience. When you look at their site, it's not about, here's an example of a closet, how much it costs and why you should buy them. It's showing real people in real environments that make you say, as sort of lifestyle customer, yes, this is the lifestyle I want. This is what, in the back of my mind, you've almost brought my dream to reality just in what you have, and I want that. And I thought that was really genius. So we we couldn't do some of the recommendations that we had to attract links because it contradicted what they were trying to convey to their audience as a lifestyle brand. So I learned very quickly that there's absolutely a separation in MarTech between the marketing and technology. And the technology side is as helpful as it can be for search engines, as you mentioned before. If it doesn't align with the marketing side and what we're trying to convey to our customers, then it's pointless. So so we learn give and take. We learn to say, you know what, let's troubleshoot down the road. Let's work with what we have. Let's do the best we can with what we have. And then in 6 months from now, if we're still not ranking for that keyword, then let's figure out what we can do off the website to make that work. Because sometimes you can still get keyword rankings without affecting the site itself by getting mentions and curation and links from other websites where they're talking about the topic that you want to appear for. So it's a lot of just kind of taking a step back and saying that's okay. This is lifestyle. And again, that's me coming from the introvert tech guy, trying to understand something that was totally new to me. And now I get it. And now in working with other clients in similar industries, we work with luxury watches. We do some support for a consignment site. Grand Seiko is one of our clients that we've worked with as well. And a lot of those same cues, right, as you used earlier, in what we're providing in our SEO strategy, we really hold back a lot of what we would have done 5-10 years ago because we understand the audience better.
Yeah. So obviously speaking to people's lifestyle is huge. And, Patagonia, as I mentioned, is an incredible lifestyle brand. It speaks to people who are outdoorsy, who are surfers, who are hikers, who are mountain climbers, right? And their lifestyle, the lifestyle part of the brand is intrinsically tied to the product. The important thing about lifestyle brand is today, because of social media and social media influencers, there are a lot of brands who try to be only a lifestyle brand as opposed to a product married to lifestyle brand, right? So the important
Red Bull's entertainment site does that a little bit. I'm like, am I on the right site? Where do I go to find Red Bull?
Right. So the trick is to have a great product and have the lifestyle part of it and speak to the lifestyle, but you have to continue to innovate the product. You have to create a great product and a great experience. I'll tell you a story. I'm working with a bottled water company right now that has a great product. It's this particular water, it has alkaline and minerals, and it's just a great water. But for the last several years, they've tied themselves to influencers. And what they've created is this marketing cycle that basically is so tied to influencers, and influencers change all the time, and social media changes all the time. So instead of sort of talking about their product, they've become only a lifestyle brand. And so they're caught trying to, ride waves of trends, and that doesn't work to build a consistent and engaged,
doesn't help the bottom line,
brand. So what we're doing right now is we're tying them back to the value of the product, and then looking at the lifestyle and go, look, who are we targeting? Are we targeting these social influencers, or are we targeting people who are looking for health benefits, who are into working out, who are into looking good and being healthy, instead of just, who's trendy on social media right now? And that's going to make a huge difference for their brand, because it's going to create a solid base in something that doesn't change every month or 2 months. It's going to connect their brand to a lifestyle choice that people make over an entire lifetime.
Sure.
So I think that lifestyle branding is great, but I'm also seeing that it can be tricky, and you have to make sure that the lifestyle is intrinsically connected to your product.
Right. I know one of the advisors that we've been working with to try to get better at social. I keep kind of downgrading ourselves a bit as technical nerds in social media. You have to be a little bit more charismatic and put yourself out there. She's been giving us advice, and looking at some of her content, she has this amazing, fun, authentic message and voice. But at the end, there's always a call to action to do something. Yeah. So, and it doesn't have to be buy my stuff. It's just, hey, by the way, if you want more of whatever, if you're interested in this topic, I've got something on my site you can go to. And there's always a call to action to drive them back into, to try to invoke action. So I thought I thought that was really interesting, and we're thinking about that now too in our own messaging of, hey, we want to share great content, we want to help people, but the long-term goal of this is to actually grow our brand, right, in our company. So what's our CTA? What are we going to do to to get people to come back and to pull them into the marketing automation funnel?
There's nothing wrong with using that as a litmus test and going, look, if you want to engage with us, then do it and prove it and show us that you want to engage, and we'll continue to create content for you. We'll continue to deliver value. If you don't want to engage, then you may not be the right fans for us today, right? So that's okay. I think that's putting a call to action is very important, because it's also, again, it's being transparent, right? You're not hiding the fact that you want to make a sale, that you want to work with people, that you want to bring people into your community.
But then you're also not just pushing content to sell, right? You're pushing content to solve problems and help people. And if they want to reciprocate and learn a little bit more about you, you're giving them a cue to do that.
Exactly.
I love it. All right. Can you give us examples of brands that passed the initial test of your entrepreneurial artistic eye and really excite or inspire you?
I'll tell you, there's a few brands that I like right now. So I'm a surfer and an outdoors person, and I'm into health, and so I love a lot of the brands right now that cater to sort of my lifestyle. And there's a few doing it really well right now. For example, there's a company called Mudwater, which has like a cacao mushroom drink. They have a really solid, the brand looks good. They have a great social media presence. They have a very good engaged audience, and the customer experience on their website and everything just works really well, and a great product. So I think that what they're doing, and it's like one product that they have, well, they've just expanded, but they started with a single product. So I love Mudwater. I love what they're doing. I like Tortuga Bags, which is a travel company that sells bags. Their ethos is authentic. They a lot of transparency, so they always talk about their personal journey and what they're going through. So even at the beginning of the pandemic, they had this really great email about what they're how they're looking at travel now, and really thoughtful, a thoughtful group of people creating a very good product. I have one of their bags and it's excellent. I'll tell you, a brand that I like is Mazda. And so I've been a luxury car guy for the last, 10 or 15 years. And I bought my first Mazda a few months ago. And I got to say, I am so impressed with their brand. And I bought a Mazda because of their brand, because their attention to detail and their curves. And in some people's eyes, that doesn't make me a great brand strategist, because I used to be an Audi guy. But
we're just talking about that. I have the new A5 convertible. So
great. Yeah. So I've had an Audi for the last, 10 years or so. And I was
not a trader. Don't worry. I won't call you that out loud.
It's all right. But I got to say that I really love their brand. Like what they're doing for a small car company. They only have a few models of cars, but if you go to their website, they are talking about their design ethos, like the way they present their story. I just found compelling. And I just thought, wow, look at this little brand that is trying to do something. It's like a little brand trying to do big things. And I love that. I love Mind Valley. Do you know who Mind Valley is?
I don't. They're the nutrition bars, or?
No. They're a coaching company that, entrepreneur / coaching. Anyways, they do an amazing job of really having an ethos and a value proposition and a message. There's just a lot of great companies out there. Apparel company called Walter Sky that I like. Topo Designs. Laird Superfoods is a company I really like. It's Laird Hamilton, who's a surfer who has a great food company that's about to go public.
Where do you surf, by the way? Because I used to surf down in Huntington Beach, like on the left side of the pier, and that was like my place forever.
Oh, nice. Yeah. My place is Topanga here in LA.
Okay.
But I also surf in Manhattan Beach a lot, and I go up north and I go down south to San Clemente. So yeah.
Totally off topic, but But
Oh,
have you ever been to Inn of the Seventh Ray in Topanga Canyon? It's
Inn
a
of the,
restaurant up there. It's called Inn of the Seventh
I've
Ray, and
seen it, but I've never eaten there.
oh my God, it's absolutely amazing. If you guys, if anyone's who's listening or watching, if you're ever in LA, make reservations at Inn of the Seventh Ray. It's just this amazing little place where you can sit in your own private garden and have dinner, and
Oh, wow.
you're in a cottage where there's stone, cobblestone, and fireplace. Just amazing. So kind
Yeah.
of neat for those of you who are out in that neck of the woods. So
Are they a sponsor of this podcast?
what's that?
Are they a sponsor of this podcast?
No, but I guess they get free sponsorship on this one, right?
There you go.
So one of the brands that used to inspire me, funny enough, and they were a funny brand, and they had a really interesting thing, was Old Spice. I would watch the Old Spice guy, and I would watch how he provokes celebrities, and he basically latches on and grabs chunks of their audience with every video that he does.
Mm-hmm.
He did one where he wrote Alyssa Milano a love letter, with a big feather pen and had flowers and everything, and she received them, and she wrote him back and did another video responding to him. And I thought that was such an amazing thing, because it's using a character, a personality that's funny, maybe a little sexy for those who think it is, and at the same time he was basically pulling other influencers' audiences by provoking him. I thought that was such an interesting thing, and it was always for fun. It was never just, I'm going to steal your audience. It was, I'm talking to you directly, and I just thought that was such an inspiring kind of fun way to build build up or rebuild a brand that's around deodorant. How that's like me complaining, oh, we're a tech company, we can't be funny. They're a deodorant company and they're hilarious. So we just have to think a little bit more out of the box, I think. And for those brands that are we do plumbing, how can we make that funny? I've seen all sorts of funny plumbing commercials where it says, don't worry, our shirts are always tucked in, and just funny stuff that people can relate to.
Yeah.
So I think there's always an angle. It's just kind of figuring out what that is and how it works for yours. One thing that I have recommended to a lot of businesses who do struggle with the creative process is to use crowdsourcing, like Amazon Mechanical Turk. We've had clients go and spend $200, $300, $400 asking 10-cent questions to thousands of people, for ideas and inspiration. If you were starting a new brand in this area, how would you make it funny? And then what you do is you take all that data, the thousands of feedback, and you assign it to somebody who does some data entry, and they just create a column and theme each of those answers. And then you run a pivot table and you see which of the themes come up the most often. What are the common responses, so that you have somewhat of a starting point as you start to test new creative and new ideas.
Yeah. Well, for most companies, again, being funny is risky, right? Doing what Old Spice did probably took some risk on their part to do something, different. And probably went against, certain voices. I'm sure not everybody was on board when they started, these campaigns. And so I think that if you are going to do that, you have to do it in stages, right? Because not everybody is comfortable with a certain type of risk. Not everybody is comfortable with that vulnerability that it takes to put out something that may seem off-brand. So it's actually a practice, right? You do it bit by bit, over and over, until it becomes second nature, until a year down the line or 2 years down the line, suddenly that is your brand.
Yep. I love it. And it evolves. I've watched businesses go from, real nerve-wracking first, okay, I'm live, what do I do? And then a year later, it's like, hey, we're here on site with so-and-so, and we're going to be talking about whatever. And like, wow, they're so relaxed now. And they're so, in there, they found their comfort zone.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting to the end of an hour, and I guess there's enough time to ask that controversial question we had, if you're up for it. Because the election just happened.
Yeah.
What do you recommend to companies that are feeling a nudge, to their glory or demise, to amp up the and broadcast the values of their branding by endorsing political causes and candidates?
Look, this seems like a tough question, but it really isn't, right? You have to know yourself as a company, right? So you have to build an ethos and a value system into your brand. And you have to do that before things come up, right? Before situations challenge you to do something. So again, I'll point out Patagonia. You expect Patagonia when something happens politically to say something, to weigh in, right? You expect them to. And so, in fact, if they don't weigh in, they're going against their brand because you know that they take a stand on this.
Right.
So, but you don't expect that from Coca-Cola. So you don't want Coca-Cola to suddenly weigh in on political matters. That ruins what Coca-Cola actually stands for, which is being above the fray. So the answer to that question really is a piece of advice for people, is to take their ethos and their values and their brand message seriously right from the beginning. And if you didn't do it at the beginning, do it today and take a stand today for what you believe in, whether it's being for a certain cause, whether it's being against a certain cause, whether it's being above, above, say, a political cause or a social cause, and understand who you are and speak to that from the get-go, so that when the situation arises, you know the values that you have, the ethos that you have, they'll define that answer for you.
Yeah, our ethos helped define our push to really support the Black Lives Matter campaign. That was really important to us. Wasn't as important to another client that we worked with, where we suggested on social media if it was important to them to have a voice. So instead of really pushing the specific topic, when there was a lot going on at the time, we said, you know what, why not just have a voice? That's so at least you're part of the conversation. You're not swaying one way or the other. And if somebody does ask, well, what's your voice? Then it's up to you if you want to chime in or not. But this way you're at least staying involved in conversations. And if it's important and you know it's important, don't be afraid to jump into the conversation. That sometimes it makes it worse, especially in that particular campaign, So we said, look, just put hashtag, have a voice. And it doesn't say one way or the other, but it still says you're listening. You know this is an important and an uncomfortable time, and you're not ignoring it.
Yeah. I'll give you a great example that happened at the beginning of the pandemic. And I actually did a webinar about this.
Okay.
So when the pandemic happened, we got a lot of notices from all the companies that were on their mailing list that said how they're dealing with the pandemic, right? And one of the voices at the beginning that I heard was Nordstrom. Nordstrom kept on sending me emails saying, hey, we know times are tough, and no matter what, you can buy online, right? So their initial response was like, hey, times are tough, we're going to let you buy online. That was their message. Then I got another email from Marriott Bonvoy. Yep. And their CEO wrote this long letter about what they are doing to help in the pandemic. They say, look, times are tough. We're at, only 26% capacity right now. So we understand. So we're suffering the way you're suffering. And we've decided to open a percentage of our rooms to medical workers on the front lines. And he wrote this beautiful, heartfelt email. And I just saw the contrast between the way these two companies use their voice. One is like, hey, we're still open for business. We know times are tough. Come shopping online with us. And one is like, hey, we understand that, you're in a world of hurt, and this is what we're doing to help the situation. And the contrast just couldn't be more obvious. So who won my vote? Who won my heart?
And I love how they adapted too. Marriott actually, I think a month ago they said, hey, do you need to get out of the house to work? Come, rent, a space for the day. Come work, here at the Marriott. We have fast Wi-Fi and quiet places for you to work. I thought that was really neat. So they jumped in. They said, here's how we're helping, but we also understand what you're going through. And if you'd like to, spend a little bit less and just come in and use the Wi-Fi, by all means do that. I thought that was pretty amazing, because now they're helping everybody, not just the frontline people.
Yeah. So think about the points that they won with anybody who's on their list versus Nordstrom. Nordstrom won nothing. In fact, they turned people off, and Marriott probably won customers for life who will remember that email in that moment forever.
Our governor is doing a little bit of that right now. I think he said, "Hey, I know you're all out of work and there's no money coming in right now, but what I want you to do is get rid of your old car and go buy a new car because you can't have cars that are older than 15 years. So we have a better environment." And everyone's like, "What is going on right now?"
Yeah.
California, what's going on in California is something called an exodus. That's what's happening. So anyway, I'm not going anywhere. This is my home.
Me too.
Well, cool. Let's see. We already talked about that. I think that about wraps it up. Is there, where can people find you online if they want to learn more about what you're doing at Superbrand or follow you online?
Connect with me on LinkedIn. Obviously, just look for Gil Nevo. And go to superbrand.la. So it's superbrand.la. Come and work with us. We do a great job. We have one of the best offerings in the world, I think, for brand strategy. We say we work with businesses of any size because we do. We work anywhere from enterprise companies to small businesses, but we've structured an offering that allows even a small company to get agency quality branding and strategy at a great price and in a package that doesn't take years to do. It just takes a few weeks and it's not expensive and it's affordable. And we have great designers and people we work with, and you work with me. So, come to Superbrand.la.
I encourage every brand to at least consider looking at their own brand and getting a second opinion. Tim Ash says this a lot. He says your brand and your website are like your baby, right? And sometimes you don't realize your baby might be ugly and it takes somebody else to tell you that. No one wants to. So reach out and ask Gil. Just say, hey, could you take a look at our brand and give us some feedback? I'm sure you could throw a couple sentences back at them, and if it catches their interest, maybe they'll get on a call with you to see how Superbrand can help.
Yep. We literally do unlock the power of people's brand. We do that tweaking. We look at the nuts and bolts and we figure out, how do you make this brand what you've always wanted it to be? A brand that engages people, a brand that, speaks to people and creates an emotional connection so that you can increase your revenue, so you can double, triple, exponentially grow your business. Branding is huge for that.
I've seen it. We're doing it ourselves, so we're practicing what you're preaching. Awesome. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Gil, for being on this episode. I'd love to do another one in the future, maybe going through a full kind of beginning to end case study. I think a lot of businesses could value what that process looks like and what's involved and how it all kind of comes together. So maybe we can talk offline about ways that we can bring something like that to the table for more context for those who heard a lot of really good ideas that might want to, see a little more visual on what that process looks like.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Thank you, Steve. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Of course. And I guess for those who are listening, we'll have this up on the podcast for you. And thank you so much for listening and watching. And Gil, we'll see you on a future episode. Bye, everyone.